What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP. The New York Mets are victorious last night, 8-7, starting the series off strong in Washington. Let's talk about some New York Mets baseball.
You are now watching the True Mets Talk podcast, talking New York Mets baseball 24/7, 365 with your host, CP.
With the shout to right field, stumbling start for Stewart. Drove to deep left field by Alvarez, and that's going to go away. 4 straight games for the second time in his. He's homered in 4.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. This is the Mets Talk day after. We are talking about a W for our New York Mets in the first game of this series in Washington. Going to be trying to do these day after game recaps, keeping it very short and sweet, but also just talking about everything that we saw last night, the previous night, whenever I do these. So keep an eye out on those. And if you're new here, make sure you hit that thumbs up as always. Even if you're a returning subscriber, hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you're new first and foremost. I want to hear what you all as the viewers have to say about last night's victory. Did this victory move you all in the right direction in terms of seeing through with this team as we head toward the deadline, or did this victory not move you? Obviously, we're going to be talking about the bullpen, which is going to be the bread and butter of this podcast. But as always, hit the comment section down below. Tyler McGill was coming off of 2 back-to-back impressive outings ever since coming back from the IL, took the mound in Washington with notorious struggles in Washington throughout his career, and he simply did not have his full command at display. 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 runs, only 4 of those were earned thanks to an unusual error out in center field by Mr. Harrison Bader, usually very sure-handed out there, allowed a runner to get on second base thanks to his error, and on a Jesse Winker RBI hit, he came around to score. But nonetheless, Tyler McGill, all you need to know, didn't have his best stuff, and he also issued 3 walks to go along with it. The strikeout numbers as well, when he has his command, has been on the rise, especially in the last 2 starts, like I said, coming off of very impressive outings, but only 4 strikeouts to his name last night in Washington. But I guess the funniest nugget, because I was there at the game last night, it's always fun watching this team live because you get to pick up a lot of things that you might not see on the TV screen, or they might go over your head and you might not think twice about on the TV screen. There's a certain point in the game, I forgot what inning it is, or what inning it was, that Tyler McGill was on the mound and he got into some trouble. Jeremy Hefner, who we always talk about on this podcast. I was actually having some external discussions with some people at the game yesterday about Jeremy Hefner and his tenure as Mets pitching coach and having the ability to survive so many different regimes and still sticking around here as pitching coach. He goes out there to talk to Mr. Tyler McGill to try to calm him down, try to get some put away stuff going, because at that point, I believe he issued a walk, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even a base hit, and he was in a little bit of trouble. So Jeremy Hefner goes back into the dugout after talking to Tyler McGill. And what does Tyler McGill do the very next at bat? He walks the guy. And I just think that's so funny because we always have these discussions surrounding Jeremy Hefner and his effectiveness, or having this ability to make use of all of the plentiful resources that David Stearns has provided him. Quite simple, in the offseason, both in the starting rotation, right? We're talking about guys like Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, even an Adrian Hauser, and guys in the bullpen as well. And something just really hasn't quite clicked. I'm not going to put this all on Jeremy Hefner. Obviously, there's a lot of issues, right, on both sides of the ball, not only pitching with the New York Mets, but it's just a funny discussion. It's not even a funny discussion, but it's a fun discussion to have when we look at this pitching rotation through the years under Jeremy Hefner's watch. That's something we're going to be talking about a lot more often on any streams we do, any podcasts we do, especially as we head toward to the tail end of the season, where we might see some shakeups organizationally, whether it's with the players or the coaches. But nonetheless, I really wanted to talk about this offense here in this podcast because this is what good teams do. And I'm not saying the Mets are a good team. Like I said, this win was cool to see, especially in person. Out there in DC, obviously always good to be a rival NL East opponent, but it didn't quite move me. But what did move me was the offensive production even given Tyler McGill's struggles. It was a back and forth game. Obviously, Joey Gallo hit that go-ahead home run, and the Mets clawed right back, right? As soon as they were down, they didn't think twice, and they regained the lead right after. And that's exactly what I like to see. And we always talk about guys in this lineup, the lineup shakeups, who's batting where. It really seems like Francisco Lindor has settled in and is comfortable in this leadoff role. And this is something that I've been calling for even to begin this season. Even before the beginning of this season, I was calling for potentially making that switch to have Francisco Lindor bat leadoff, going back to those Cleveland days in which he did so very well. You can look at the numbers and the differences in statistics when he's at leadoff versus anywhere else in the lineup. I know he's had some success in the past at the 2 spot as well, but leadoff really has looked like a comfort spot for him. And I really enjoy watching him and his at bats that he takes there because came up yesterday in a situation where I believe it was 2 outs at the time. Don't quote me on that. And he comes out there and produces with an RBI hit. And that's exactly what we've been calling for this team and this offense, getting clutch 2-out RBI base knocks. So shout out to Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso, very quiet night, 0 for 5, had that pitch clock strikeout where he wasn't ready by the 8-second mark, and he just kind of looked out of sorts at the plate. Brandon Nimmo, 2 for 5. Really need Brandon Nimmo to get going and get this lineup going through and through. I think that if anybody needs to step it up, especially now that Francisco Lindor looks more comfortable in that leadoff spot, it is Brandon Nimmo. Very good to see him hit the gap as well for a double in last night's game. JD Martinez is ripping the cover off the ball. I understand that he only went 1 for 4, but some of those hits that he had out there were just complete shots, lasers that ended up just being right at the outfield. There's nothing you can really do about that. But listen, if we talk about anything here, and we can give credit to the bottom of this lineup, obviously Bader with 2 RBIs, Iglesias, who was 3 for 5, an RBI as well to his name. Really, obviously on the live stream, if you paid attention yesterday and you tuned in, talking about this front office potentially sending a subtle message to Jeff McNeil with this call-up of Jose Iglesias. So let's monitor that. Luis Torrens, new addition, 2 RBIs on that base knock. Great to see. But the guy that I really want to talk about here is Mark Vientos. 2 for 3, no doubter of a home run. He is swinging one of the hottest bats in this Mets lineup after he completely just took this job over from Brett Beatty with that send down there the last couple of days, in this past week, I should say. Mark Vientos is really turning some heads, including mine. I wasn't sold on Mark Vientos. I haven't been sold, and I still might not be sold on his future tenure with the New York Mets. But honestly, I'm starting to buy in. I'm starting to see with a better sample size. And I think that all the people and all the Mets fans that were proponents of Mark Vientos being in the starting lineup in some capacity, whether it's DH, right, like it was looking like before the JD Martinez signing, or whether it's at third base taking over for Brett Beatty. I think that this is what all those people, and shout out to them. I had Dan Bartels as well, even before the season started. Shout out to Dan. If you watch this, really want to have him back up here on the podcast, we will make that happen. Everyone, or half the fan base, I should say, was calling for Mark Vientos to win this job regardless. And we are starting to see with that sample size, that increase in consistent sample size to Mark Vientos' name, exactly what he can do. And yes, he's always going to be a free swinger. But honestly, I kind of love that about Mark Vientos because I always preach, if you get a first pitch strike, especially if it's a fastball down the middle in your wheelhouse, swing the bat. So I like his aggressiveness and I like his approach. And you know what? I'll live with some of the bad swings on pitches out of the zone. I'll live with maybe an increased K rate because he's somewhere over there, always floating between 27 to 30, 31% on the K rate. I'll live with that. But the processes, the confidence, and the results for Mark Vientos are just phenomenal right now. And you got to give him props or props are due. So we're about 10 minutes into this podcast. Like I said, we will be going live at some point during this week, whether it's on the roundtable or pregame stream. Make sure you hit that thumbs up for me on this video. This is a pre-recorded version. I definitely appreciate that, and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Let's talk about the focal point of what my live stream was about yesterday afternoon going into this game one, before the Mets kicked off this series against the Washington Nationals. It was the bullpen, specifically the closer role, now that Edwin Diaz is on the shelf on the IL. And we saw it last night. Obviously, the Mets bullpen fared pretty well. Adrian Hauser, over 2 innings pitched. I was very surprised to see the Mets extend him like they did, but I guess that is the strength that you can play when you move a starting pitcher into the bullpen, especially when your starting pitchers aren't giving you length. You can do that, and you have the flexibility to do that and extend Adrian Hauser like they did last night. 2.1 innings pitched, did walk 2, got into some trouble there and handed it off to Drew Smith, but collectively 0 earned runs given up. But listen, this is the problem. This is the problem that I am stressing for the Mets to fix in the way that they approach the closer role now that Edwin Diaz is injured. And even before he was injured, when he was lacking confidence, from his own words, after blowing 3 saves in a row. This is the problem. We saw it last night. Adam Ottavino comes into the game, was wondering if it was going to be Reed Garrett, Adam Ottavino. We even talked about other options in Danny Young, who's been impressive, but they called on Adam Ottavino, which makes sense. He's the veteran. He should be able to lock down a ball game, being a veteran, and really taking on that kind of role last year in the absence of Edwin Diaz. But he has been absolutely brutal this season. Over a 5 ERA. The whip is horrendous. The walks haven't been as bad, but you see here on the screen, 2 walks, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and only 1/3 innings pitched, excuse me. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable, especially at this point of the season. And I don't want to bring this up and make this about the wild card. I don't want to do it. But if this Mets team and this Mets organization feels like they can make a run at a playoff spot, regardless if us fans agree with it or not, this cannot be happening, especially with a guy that needs to be dependable and consistent when your superstar closer is not available. So what we saw last night from Adam Ottavino, in my mind, is not going to change. And he can't be in that role at all. But we need some consistency. It cannot be, and I've said this maybe 5 times on this channel over this past week, we cannot implement a closer by committee situation, especially when Edwin Diaz is still in the IL. Give the job to somebody. And if that somebody is Reed Garrett, so be it. That would be my choice. If that somebody is Sean Reed-Foley, who has shown that he has the capability of being a decent bullpen arm, then so be it. If that means you need to keep Daniel Nunez up in here with the major league team and not flip-flop him back between AAA and the Mets, then so be it. It doesn't matter who it is. Obviously, by default, it can't be Edwin Diaz because he's hurt. Shouldn't be Adam Ottavino because he's under that opportunity in my eyes countless of times. But it has to be somebody consistent, and it has to be them consistently. Quite simple. So as it pertains to last night, though, Jake Diekman came in, got 2 huge outs. I was sweating bullets out there in the stands, not only because it was hot, because this Mets team just simply doesn't want to grasp any sort of ball game by the horns and just end it. They want to allow other teams to come back and make it interesting for us Mets fans. So shout out to Jake Diekman coming back strong after that blown save versus the Diamondbacks, getting 2 crucial outs to get the save against the Nationals. So like I said, to round it out, this was a good win. This was a needed win. This wasn't a great win with the way that it played at the end, but it was a good win. Do the Mets continue to build off of this, or do they go back out there tonight and lay an egg? That's what we all are hoping for. And none of us know this answer. With the way they've been playing, very erratic, very inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get from this team on a nightly basis. But it's good at the very minimum that this offense picked up the pitching aspect of things in Tyler McGill and Adam Ottavino. And it's nice to see that 8 runs were put up on the board. So here's the probable pitching matchup tonight. Obviously, some breaking news here as of recent. Right before I decided to start recording this, Trevor Williams got scratched from his start for the Washington Nationals. They placed him on the IL. Instead of Trevor Williams, who is having a tremendous season, Trevor Williams was 5-0 with a 2.22 ERA up until this point. DJ Hers is making his MLB debut, getting called up from AAA Rochester for the Washington Nationals tonight. He's a southpaw. Don't know too much about him, but he's a soft-tossing lefty, 91 to 92 miles per hour in the fastball, and he's got a changeup, which is his primary put-away off-speed pitch. So, by virtue of how the Mets always make opposing pitchers in their MLB debuts look, I'm going back out there to Washington, D.C., at Nats Park. I'll be in attendance for this game to see David Peterson versus DJ Hers. I really, really hope this offense just finds a way, because they did a great job. Mackenzie Gore has had success against this Mets lineup, and they figured out finally how to get to Mackenzie Gore last night. And you got another lefty on the mound. You actually got 3 lefties in a row because Patrick Corbin is starting for the Nationals in Game 3. And we all know the Mets struggles against left-handed pitching. So let's see what happens tonight. New York Mets lefty David Peterson is making his second start after coming back from the IL as well. 3.60 ERA. Had a decent game his first time out against the Dodgers. It was a no decision. He's 0-0 on the season. Let's get him that first victory. Hope the offense comes out swinging again. Like I said, I'll be in attendance. I appreciate you all tuning into the True Mets Talk day after recap. Hopefully, I'm in attendance again for a win. I like to think I'm bringing the luck, but you never know. Like I said, I have no expectations going into these games. I just want to see the Mets put up more runs than the opposing team when it's all said and done. So like I said, everybody, please, I appreciate you all being here. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'll be dropping another day after recap tomorrow to recap tonight's game. And let's just hope for the best. If you want to find me on all social media handles, X, Instagram, even my YouTube handle, obviously you're here watching, so you're here already on the YouTube, at CPNYSports is the handle all around. Make sure you're checking out the channel memberships on the YouTube homepage. I definitely appreciate that. And with that, everybody have a great rest of your night. And hopefully, I'm uploading a video tomorrow talking about another Mets W, just like this one. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.